Hello and welcome. It's Monday. It's Motivational Monday by Jim and Lucy. And today's special guest will help you get going. Today, this week, this month, no time left to wait because there are small steps that can lead you to big life. And our special guest is Diane Randall, who will help you on your journey. Hello, Diane.
Hello, thank you for having me.
I have to tell you, folks, if you could see Diane like we are right now, you wouldn't need coffee for a week because she'll get you pumped up. She's amazing.
Well, Diane, thank you for joining us. Please tell us more. Your motto is like small steps towards a big life. I think it's very helpful strategy for each and every one of our listeners. So how do you help people on this journey?
What I do is I call myself a whole living consultant. And what that means is I help people to get inner tools and strategies to help them live their life. So I work with the mind, the body, and the spirit because one really doesn't work well without the other. Sometimes we're conscious of that, and sometimes we're not. So in my work, I help people, for example, set boundaries around their life to become the people that they want to be from the inside out. So we start small. We start with just one step and one action. So and I call that a practice. You practice something every day and hopefully you become better and better at it. So if I want to be better at, let's say, setting a boundary with my boss, then I practice something really small at first, like leaving at a decent time.
Mhm.
And also that could also be negotiating and communicating with my boss that I need to leave. And the work I do often requires courage, courage to speak up, courage to stand in your power, courage to ask for what you want.
I love
So,
that.
yep.
How do you get people to find this courage that they don't even know that they have?
Well, that's a good point because a lot of people don't know that they have it. But the question I like to ask is because even when I say, let's practice, oh, I can't do that, then my question is, what is it costing you to not stand up and step into your power for the change you want to make in your life? What is it costing you right now? I mean, it could be, you know what, I'm not moving forward. I'm not happy. So that's where I like to work. When they say, oh, I'm not happy. Okay, let's talk about that. What does that mean? I wanted to move to, let's say, California, and I'm too afraid. I don't know what to do. Okay, let's talk about that. What does that mean? And really, what we find out, what are the barriers? Why can't you move to California? We start digging deep and deep. Well, let's say I don't have a good enough job. Okay, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And sometimes we dig into that, and that could mean, okay, I have some ideas of what I need to do, and it's working on those things that we can identify those steps and actions to help you move forward. And the other
Yes.
side of that is it takes courage because guess what? It is, life can be scary, especially if you want to do something you've never done, like move across the country. It can be very, very scary. But what I
Yes.
say to that is do it anyway. If you set your intention and you build the steps and everything you need to do to move across country, like you get the job, you attend online job fairs, whatever people are doing now to find work across country. What I tell them is, okay, it's okay to be scared, but at the same time, you want to step into that process and practice with one step at a time. It could just be a phone call to a recruiter. That's a step. And when people say, well, you know what, I'm getting overwhelmed, that's too, okay, let's look at that and break that down even more. Get online and find 5 recruiters, you know what I mean? And then the next step could be, okay, what are you going to say? And helping that person get the message that they want to convey to that recruiter, for example. And then call the recruiter. You know what? So sometimes it could be harder to do. But being scared is okay. It's really okay. It's not a reason not to do something, in my opinion.
Well, it is hard, and as you mentioned, the fears can be paralyzing. But let's go back to the boundaries. So if we don't set boundaries, we also enforce those fears, right? That you mentioned boundaries with your boss. What about those of us who work for ourselves? What are the boundaries? The work, the life, because self-employed and serial entrepreneurs, and there are so many of those now, and digital nomads, we like work 24/7 sometimes. Even if there is a decent degree of flexibility, it still can be overwhelming. What will be your advice on boundaries
Well,
in this
here's the
case?
beautiful thing, we work for ourselves, right? We work for ourselves. That's the beautiful thing. And it is looking at your daily life, because at a certain point, let's be honest, I mean, how many hours are we really productive? You know, if I'm worn down at the end of the day, and I'm constantly I know I'm no good after about 7 o'clock if I'm talking all day. You know what I mean? So it's knowing when to stop and being okay with it doesn't make you less of an entrepreneur because you didn't work 13 hours that day. It really doesn't. It is finding that balance between what is going to help my life flow, what's going to keep me from getting stressed and sick, because that's the other side of that, right? What is that balance? And it's identifying that. It is really looking at how you spend your time from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed. It's really maybe you want to write those things down just to get an idea, because a lot of us, we work and we're not thinking about it. We're just going through the day at what we need to do. But one good idea is to write down how you use your time on a daily basis, and you'd be surprised some of the things you could take out, you could shorten. One I like to use is I had a client who was going to a meeting once a month for like 10 years. And the question is, that meeting served her for a long time in her life. But then she realized after she wrote down, what she was doing with her time in that meeting, she was just going. She was just on automatic pilot. So the question is, does that meeting still serve you? Is it helping you in any way? Other than not trying to hurt somebody's feelings because you don't need to go anymore. So part of a boundary is, let's say you're only going because you're this person you used to work with got you a job and you feel you owe that to them. We do a lot of that, right? So
Yeah.
it is telling that person that, you know what, I'm no longer going to come to these meetings, and being okay with that. And now you have, let's say, 2 hours, because it's 30 minutes each way to get to the meeting, right? And then it's an hour. So now you have 2 hours, as an example, that you can take and fill up with things that you need to do. And like with that boundary, it will take courage to tell that person, because for whatever reason, you feel you owe that person. We put that kind of burden on ourselves
Yeah,
too.
we do.
So so it's telling that person, not feeling you have to explain yourself, that, you know what, I'm not going to come to these meetings anymore. I'm going to use my time for whatever else you're going to use it for, and being okay with that. It's okay if they're not okay, but you have to be okay. even if it feels a little weird inside of you. That's what I mean by courage. Courage to live the life that we really want to live. It takes courage.
You're absolutely correct. I remember listening to Oprah. And yes, people, I'd watch Oprah and listen to her, okay? All right. But she has Shonda Rhimes on, the creator of all kinds
Yeah.
of programs.
Mm-hmm.
And Shonda, this is more than a year ago, said it was all about no. And she said, learning to no gives you courage. She said, no is a sentence. It is
All
a
by
complete
itself.
sentence.
Mm-hmm.
And once you say no, this is not good enough for me. No. That's it. You don't owe an explanation, anything, just no. Do you think that people have, I'm listening to your story, for example, about moving to California. Do you think that somehow we don't tell ourselves a legitimate story that, for example, we focus so much on the negative about ourselves? We don't realize all the time we've had this enormous courage, that we've done so many things that are right that we forget about them. And we focus on a handful of times we might have missed something, or we felt like we didn't have courage, but we've done so many things in our lives that just worked out well, and we forget about them.
Or we don't feel that we're enough, or that we
Yes,
deserve to do something. And that's a lot of the work that I do, is helping people to release. And a lot of it comes from childhood. It comes from
yes,
somewhere in our lives where we felt we got a message that said we weren't good enough or smart enough or
yes,
whatever. That is how do I move from there? That is what a lot of us have to move past in order to see that we have gifts, we have things that we can do to serve the world and prove ourselves, but it's getting past those things that we tell ourselves. I call that the self talk.
yes, yes. And that self-talk is really critical.
It's very critical, but it's how do I make friends with that self talk, because it's not going anywhere? And how do I hear the self talk? Hear it, but that's all I'm doing is hearing it, and I'm going to keep moving anyway. And part
Yes,
of that is when you hear that, especially the negative part, is that true? What, you're not smart enough. Is that really true? And you say yes or no. But if you say yes, okay, what proof do you have? I want you to write that down. What proof
yes,
do you have that you're not smart enough? And when you take those thoughts, that self talk from your head, you put it on paper and make it reality, you'd be surprised when you break that down how much you figure out is really not true. But
that is.
that is the practice of doing that initially. Because I'll hear stuff. I mean, I still think crazy stuff, but I love that I can hear it. It doesn't control my life. I'm not going to change my mind on what I want to do. Sometimes when I would go to the gym, I would talk myself in and out of it like 5 times. You went yesterday, you don't need to go today, you're good. But then I would push past all that and go anyway. You know what I'm
Well,
saying? It just
that's remarkable. If I don't feel like going to the gym, I do everything I can to convince Lucy to go for me. It works too. She's a good woman.
We're still working on that. It's a journey.
Yeah, I hear you, Lucy.
Hey, wait a minute, okay? She called me chubby. She called me chubby hubby the other day. Can you believe that? And I said, "Oh
Well, you
man."
just you just said you get her to go to the gym for you, so.
I encourage our listeners to work with you because you have a comfortable way of engaging with people, and people sometimes, a lot of us sometimes, you're right, we don't feel as courageous about ourselves as we should, and we have so much going on for us. And I hope they contact you and work with you because it's worth it.
Well, Your advice is absolutely amazing, and the exercise of writing down your self-talk, I think that will be an important one. And I encourage our listeners to try it this week. And absolute must this week is go to the website DianeRandallConsults.com, right?
Yes, that's it.
So our dear listeners, there is a link in the description to this episode. Go to the website, book a meeting, and start working today.
I fully agree. And please contact Diane. She knows what she's talking about, and she'll work with you. But not only work with you, she knows what she's saying, and she has a nice way of getting you to do things that you don't even know you're able to do.
That's right. That's right. Thank you, guys.
She makes you think that it's your own idea, and that's
It is your idea. It has to come from you.
It's a female thing.
It's a female thing. It's a Jedi think. It's a Jedi thinking that she has. All right. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Diane.
Thank you guys for having me.
This is Motivational Monday by Jim and Lucy.
Follow our podcast
And check out our website, jimandlucywoods.com.